My fourth grade teacher thought I read too many black books. One day, following a parent-teacher conference, my mother came to me and shared my teacher's concern that my book selection, with its almost exclusive focus on black stories, was too narrow. My teacher thought I should broaden my reading horizons outside the scope of just black life. Now, when my mother shared this with me, I felt confused and annoyed. I was confused because I thought, why would my mother even repeat this foolishness to me? It was my mother, a kindergarten teacher, who had instilled in my siblings and me a love and pride in our black identity and an appreciation for the importance of reading and books. And I was annoyed because how dare my teacher interfere with my thirst for seeing my own culture reflected in stories. These were the days of Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry by Mildred Taylor, Zelie by Virginia Hamilton, and Honey, I Love by Eloise Greenfield. I read these books over and over. I wonder if my teacher had gone to parents of other students in the class who very likely had a predominantly white reading diet and encouraged them to include more black books in their selection. Now, I don't know how my mom responded to my teacher that day, and my mother never encouraged me to change the direction of my reading, and despite feeling confused and annoyed, I'm so thankful that my mother passed along my teacher's message. It affirmed for me at that young age that I had a strong and growing sense of my black self. I was protective and proud of it. It also heightened my awareness that not everyone would share in my love for blackness. Not everyone would appreciate my need to see it reflected in books. Not everyone would understand that for black people in the United States, reading and literacy have always in part been about freedom and self-representation. Around 1920, W.E.B. Du Bois began publishing the Brownies book, a magazine for, as he called it, the children of the sun. He solicited manuscripts and drawings related to colored children, and he wanted to teach universal love and brotherhood. Du Bois knew it was important for black children to develop cultural and racial pride, to oppose narratives of inferiority that surrounded them, and that sought to justify black people's unequal position in Jim Crow society. With characters like Farina of our gang to contend with, self-representation was a key component in the struggle for freedom. And now here we are in 2018, nearly a century after Du Bois first began publishing the Brownies book magazine, and we need black children's books as much as ever before. This decade has seen black girls expelled from school for wearing their hair in its natural state, and black children criminalized for selling water. There is so much negative messaging about blackness surrounding black children, and so self-representation remains vital to freedom. I've worked in education and literacy throughout my adult life, and in 2017, I published a children's book in dedication to my daughter. I wanted to give her a story about dreams and adventure, and it was important to me that my daughter, who is of Ethiopian and African-American heritage, see this cultural richness reflected in the book. So I worked with my illustrator who brought my vision to life, and Dream a Rainbow was born. From there, I established Daydreamers Press as a way to publish multicultural literature, promote multicultural learning, and advocate for excellence in education. And in so doing, I became part of this movement of self-published black creators of books for children. Now, even though I've known about this problem with diversity and representation in books for as long as I can remember, it's since becoming a mother of two young children that I'm so regularly frustrated by the lack of diverse children's content when searching across multiple platforms, like Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, and of course books on library and bookstore shelves. In fact, according to the Cooperative Children's Book Center, in 2017, just 11% of children's books published featured significant black characters. And what's more troubling is that of that 11%, which was around 330 or so books, just 100 or so were created by black authors and illustrators. So that means that of the already too small number of children's books published telling black stories, the vast majority were told through the perspective of a white storyteller. Now, I've talked about my mom being a kindergarten teacher, and she recalls that throughout her 30-plus years of teaching in elementary school, Black History Month was always a time when Black literature and Black accomplishment would take center stage. And the book, The Snowy Day, was always a favorite among teachers to feature. Many teachers believe that because the main character is an African-American little boy, that the author and illustrator was also African-American. But Ezra Jack Keats was a Jewish man who simply believed that Black characters should be centered in children's books. And the result is this beloved character and story. So while I don't discount the merit of The Snowy Day as a classic work of children's literature, I still have to ask the question, why have we not made more space for Black authors and illustrators to tell Black stories? We cannot underestimate the power and the position of storyteller or the relevance of perspective. When we write stories, we create worlds, establish norms and expectations, and decide what beauty, brilliance, and belonging look and feel like. The great storyteller Thomas King has said that once loose in the world, stories can't be called back. So we must be careful the stories we tell, but watch out for the stories we're told. Have you ever been told something that takes up space in your mind and refuses to let go? Now, if that's an affirmative thing, then great. But if it's a message of deficit, defeat, or doubt, it can be quite a curse to your joy. One of my favorite children's book writers, Virginia Hamilton, has said that she conceded a benevolent life to the characters in her fiction as a sort of gift to Black readers for whom she knew life in the United States could be unreasonably burdened with struggle. And as a reader of her books, I remain grateful for the wonder and idealism that I found there. It was her perspective as a Black woman that was so invaluable. Virginia Hamilton understood the importance of freedom, representation, and joy in books. So what do we do with this centuries-old problem of diversity and representation in children's books? We can demand that the mainstream publishers do a better job on their end as it relates to children's literature, and I think we should continue to do that. We can support smaller presses whose mission is to publish multicultural literature created by a diverse array of authors and illustrators, and I think we need to do more of that. And a third option that I put out today is that we seek out and support independent, self-publishing Black creators of books for children. People like Monique Duncan, author and illustrator of When Mama Braids My Hair, Veda Azim, author and illustrator of The Boy Who Tried to Touch the Sun, and Tamara Pozzoli, author of The Ghanaian Goldilocks, are some of the many Black creators of books for children publishing independently. And we know that writing is an instrument of testimony, of self-representation and imagination, and it is a path to freedom. We need you to join us on the journey. Thank you.